Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for the introduction right now. I appreciate you so much, and thank you all for having me here, Beyond Housing. I'm really appreciative of being here, especially discussing the topic that I'm discussing today, which is civic leadership. I report a lot on St. Louis, the highs and the lows, the Stanley Cups, and also the crime. And we know, it takes everyone in every part of this city to make sure that we are moving it forward in the correct way. And that's where civic leadership comes into play, right? We have to make sure that the people who are in charge of moving our community forward is actually doing that and holding them accountable, but also making sure that we're making sure that they're doing what needs to be done when it comes to different organizations in the community as well, making sure that we're all on the same front and not doing, the same work, just different ways, So but without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce the four people who's going to be on this panel with me today. Let's go ahead and start with Representative Kevin Windham, who is also a CMO alumni as well. I actually went to school with Kevin, so to see Kevin doing amazing things in St. Louis is simply amazing. Also, we have Mayor Tiffany Graham, Councilman Terry Wilson, and Kalia Booker. She's with the Ferguson Youth Initiative. So thank you all so much for joining us. And once again, we're just going to talk a little bit about civic leadership. First, I want to start with Mr. Kevin Windham. Kevin, you there?
I'm here, Derrion. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, brother. It's good to have you here as well. Well, Kevin, once again, just full disclosure, me and Kevin went to school together, went down to SEMO. But Kevin, I think the people should know, why did you choose to enter the elected leadership, and what significant steps did you take to get there?
Wow, that's a big question, Derrion. Thank you for it, though. So I think that really the last breaking straw for me to want to get involved in government in general was when Michael Brown was killed or murdered in Ferguson. So before then, it was little things in my life that probably should have showed me that I had a will for public service. But especially after Mike Brown was murdered in Ferguson, as you know, I joined student government and Black Student Union on campus, and then eventually went on to work for Senator Maria Chappelle Nadal on the state level, and then Senator McCaskill on the federal level before I decided to run for office myself. But that's probably the short answer to that. I think you're on mute, Derrion.
Okay, and Kevin, as well, just right before you leave, also a big thing is being young too. We want to make sure that the young people are stepping up. So you could just tell just why, at your age, you said, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it and not take my time and wait.
I think that our voice is very important in government. I mean, we pay taxes just like everyone else, but especially so that we can get the perspective of young folks, because a lot of times we make laws and don't think about how they actually affect young folks, or sometimes the hurdles that we may have to go through. So I think that it's especially important to get involved early, because we especially have to learn to use government to be able to affect our community in positive ways. So if we get that started early, then it's better for the community, right?
Absolutely. And I now want to turn things over to Mayor Tiffany Graham. Mayor, you there? Mayor Graham?
I'm here.
How you doing? Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. And also with you as well, because we also have to make sure that, through leadership in St. Louis, that we also, every part is being represented properly. You're a Black woman, that's very, very clear. And of course, having Black women in leadership brings a whole nother perspective to everything. What have you seen, the difference in your community since you stepped up to that role and say, hey, I want to be, make a change in my community? And what have you seen that impact in your own community?
So I believe that my entire life I watched servant leaders in all arenas. So I strongly believe in the idea of having positive role models. So when I look back, it's evident that there are quite a few Black women that served as an inspiration at a distance for me, like Miss Martha Christmas, who unknowingly recruited me to our alma mater, Alabama A&M, and the Honorable Betty Thompson, who traveled with us on a young leaders trip to Atlanta with the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. State Celebration Commission. So they, along with a multitude of others, molded my idea of what being a public servant means. So I hope that, like them, that I will serve as a role model to the younger generation and let them know that it's important for us to be in positions to make sure that the issues that are vital to improving our quality of life are addressed. And so that things that I have seen that are significant for having Black representation and just diversity in general is just that all of our voices are heard, and as well as people just bringing their different perspectives to the political arena.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much. I want to also bring in Councilman Terry Wilson. Terry, you there?
Yes, sir. I am here. How you doing? How's everyone else going?
I'm pretty good. Good morning, brother. And I know you have a hand in a lot of things in the community, a lot of things. So I know this next question for you is almost perfection. In your opinion, Terry, how can elected officials, best serve the community, especially during this pandemic? When you talk about, communities hit hard during this pandemic, you're looking in the North County region, around the Ferguson, Dalewood area. You're also looking in the 63115 in St. Louis City. We can't forget about St. Louis City as well, another hard hit community. How can elected leaders better serve the community right now as we're dealing with this pandemic?
So first off, elected leaders should always put the people first. They should always listen to what the people want and what the people need, because that's why we're there. And I believe if we listen more and assume less, I think we can get a lot more done. And we just have to communicate. Communication is key in this whole thing. I think a lot of misunderstandings come from lack of communication, and I think we communicate a whole lot more and actually apply the things that the people are saying that they need and want, I think we'll be in a better spot.
Absolutely. And of course, during this time too, because the pandemic comes during an election year. Yeah. We hear a lot of back and forth and this and that. And it's almost, even while I report on it, I'm thinking in my mind, like, can progress really be made while you're also have, negative ads at one another and things of that nature? So, is it being done right now? I mean, kind of just give us the clean cut raw about this situation right now.
Well, on a micro level, I will say it is being done because I applaud the smaller municipalities that have a real close connection to their constituents. From our neighbors in Dalewood and Bell Fountain and Normandy, I think those leaders are really listening. I think the issue is really getting support from above. And I believe when those entities are all in sync, it makes it better for our constituents. If our municipalities are working effectively with our county government, if our county government is working effectively with our state government, and if our state government is working effectively with our federal government, it's all a trickle down. And like I said, it comes down to communication and putting politics aside and putting the people at the forefront. And I think if we do a better job at putting the people at the forefront and not focus so much on the politics, we can get a whole lot accomplished.
So thank you so much, Terry. And Kevin, I can't move on to the next question, but I definitely, without asking you that question, because as of right now, there's a special session going on in Jefferson City where a lot of, I'll say alarming things are being put into a bill where people should definitely know what's going on. Kevin, what's your thoughts on better serving the community during this pandemic? And also while we're also dealing with an increased number of violence in our community as well.
Yeah, so I think that the pandemic has really exposed. Can you hear me, Will?
Yes.
So I think that the pandemic has really exposed some of the flaws in government, or really, I guess, how government is designed to not really be as efficient as it should be. So we see that whether it be with some of the CARES Act funding that's come down, or whether it be folks just trying to apply for unemployment benefits, that sometimes government isn't as fast or as efficient as it should be. And sometimes even when you have folks that maybe you didn't vote for, maybe don't have the best interests of your community at heart, they can even be a little bit slower or less intentional with the money. So it's a difficult process, especially sometimes being a state rep as you know, just being one of 163, sometimes you don't always get your way, or you rarely ever get your way, especially being in a super minority. But it's important to be able to work with folks and be able to really express why your community needs different things. So it's been a struggle trying to navigate it, but it's an honor to serve for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, can you put in perspective as well? Like you said, the Democrats have a super minority right now in Jefferson City, but yet there's a crime bill that is heavily affected, that will heavily affect the St. Louis region, and that's heavily a Democratic area. So it's kind of like, or outside people making changes to the St. Louis area. Can you kind of put in perspective exactly what's going on as it deals with the situation here, and how do you guys plan on navigating this on that level when you have that gridlock?
Yeah, sure. So that's that's a good question, Derrion. So the crime bill right now is a tough on crime bill rather than a smart on crime bill. I don't think that we have any of the 163 legislators in Jefferson City likes crime, but we just have different ways of going about trying to solve our issues around crime. I think that most Democrats like to try to find root causes like education, healthcare, housing, while a lot of Republicans like to do things like longer penalties in jail, or arresting folks younger, or certifying folks as adults younger. So the bill right now in Jefferson City started off as a bill that would add a list of offenses that young folks would be able to go to prison for, namely unlawful use of a weapon and armed criminal action, as well as some drug offenses. But it eventually changed because not only Democrats had some problems with it, but Republicans had problems with it. And now it's changed quite a bit to where it actually changes the age and increases it to 16, where you can charge an adult, a child as an adult, which is still not where a lot of folks want it to be, but it's progress because we started off being able to charge 12-year-olds as adults. So it's difficult being up there, and sometimes gridlock is good though. So we had a little bit of gridlock last week when the governor, or I'm losing track of my days now, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. We had a little bit of gridlock when the governor adjusted his call for a special session, and that caused a little bit of consternation amongst Republicans, and I think we ended up with a better bill because of it though.
So thank you so much, Kevin. I want to bring back in Mayor Graham about and kind of shifting over to the pandemic. I know, I've been hearing from different mayors even through this pandemic, all the money, I believe it's over $100 million that was allocated to St. Louis County that's supposed to come down the pipeline and come down to the communities as it deals with the pandemic. My question to you is kind of where is your community sitting right now as it deals with testing and things of that nature, and what help do you need right now?
So our community is a much smaller community, so we kind of rely on the resources of the surrounding areas, and Beyond Housing has been instrumental in that, bringing testing to the community. So they've had testing with Affinia Healthcare. And then there are other pop-up sites that are around the community that we can utilize. We have a newsletter, and we also communicate with our residents all of the other resources that are available, not just the pop-up testing, but the mortgage assistance, the rental assistance, and utility assistance that is available, along with the food drives that the Urban League has been having, and then the other smaller churches that they've been having. So the resources are very slow to come through the pipeline. We have been communicating with the Muni League about some of the dollars that are available for public safety, because the tax revenue has declined because of the closures within the retail sector. So we're not getting as much tax revenue in, so that's an issue for us, and we kind of have to rebalance our budgets and try to figure out, what are the priorities so that we can be able to adjust and just move with the flow. But we have been in contact with the leaders on the state and federal levels in order to be able to get those dollars in place, and we're just waiting for the resolutions to go through and for everything to come together so that our residents can get the service that they need. Mayor Brian Jackson has been very vocal about not being able to get the dollars. So I appreciate him, and also Mayor McGee for being at the front and just kind of helping to push us along so that we can get what we need so that we can help the most vulnerable in our communities.
And we've all pretty sure been saying the week after week, I'm pretty sure Urban League is probably getting prepared right now to do another food drive. I believe it's over in Alton today. But, you know, Mayor Graham, what can we do? What can we do to help your community during this period of time? You're muted there, Mayor Graham.
There that we all can be doing. I've asked the alderpersons locally to split the resident list up to check on everyone and make sure that everyone is doing okay, not just health-wise, again, but just letting them know the resources available. Because coming down, there's going to be economic fallout and other ramifications. And on the state and federal level, I wish they would just understand that what one person does affects the masses. And right now is not the time to politicize anything. And we need to work together. You know, like, just be a role model. Like, just wearing a mask is even good enough. And actually, what can anyone do to help Greendale, or just the community as a whole, is just continue what we've been doing and working together. But I think that Greendale is a little bit different just because we're smaller, and then the people are a little bit, when Chris was talking about neighbors, we're a little bit more neighborly. So I just wish that that was a thing for the other communities, because we kind of are self-sustaining in a way, but we all need each other to survive. So that's how I'll put that answer.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Graham. I want to switch over to Terry. And just so you know, Chris, I do see your question in the chat box. We will get to that, I promise you. And if anyone have any questions, just go ahead and put it in the chat box. We're definitely going to get those answered for you all. Terry, I want to turn it over to you, though. Even though you are a man of many hats, like I said before, you can find Terry a little bit of everywhere. I see him at all the press conferences and everything, which is great. But of course, that's not everybody's speed. Everybody's speed is not, you know, going and being in the press conference, or being at the podium in the press conference, or sitting in the boardroom. You know, you have so many people who say, you know, protesting is how I get it done. So my question to you is, what does civic leadership look like for residents and citizens who do not hold office?
Well, I think you hit it, man. Everybody has a role to play. And it all starts where the foundation is, and that's inside of your home. Really getting educated on the issues, really participating in the process, and really bringing awareness to the people in your home, your neighbors, and it'll just spread out. I don't think we talk enough to each other about these different issues that are going on in our community. And I think back to what Kevin was, not to jump off your question, but back to what Kevin was saying, how you know, they're having difficulty in the House, and sometimes you have difficulty here locally. But I think that's an opportunity for the community to participate. I believe if the community is more aware of the process and how things are supposed to get done and how things are not getting done, I think they'll be a little more vocal too. And then in that same vein, you can take advantage of an election year, because if you're running for office and you got thousands of people saying, hey, we want this in our community, we need this done, I think it'll be a sense of urgency. And I don't think we do that enough. But I think with more organization in terms of educating the community on all of the issues and what's really going on, and not doing the political dance just to be doing something. I think the awareness piece is real big, and I don't think we have enough people beating on the right folks' door to make things happen. I think that's where the smaller elected officials could help folks that are not elected really get engaged, just bringing that whole awareness piece out.
And Lillian, I see your question, and now I'm gonna go ahead and just put that right on over on Terry here. Lillian asked the question of how are community leaders working with residents during this period of time? As you know, there's a partnership, and I know, you know, I speak to some people who understand that everybody's role isn't, you know, being in the office, and there's some people who just don't understand it just whatsoever. And you have to bridge that gap. I feel as if that road and that gap doesn't always get crossed the best way. How are community leaders trying to bridge that gap to residents who need to have their voices heard, but just can't figure out a way to do that besides going to the ballot box and making sure they go to the ballot box too?
I think some community, I can't speak for all, but I think some community leaders are working very hard in terms of getting with other organizations that are doing things that are familiar with those residents. I think they're working with them to get information out. I think they're working with them to get services to the residents and things of that nature. I think really I go back to that whole communication thing. You have to communicate. And when I say communicate, you have to come to where people are. I mean, you have to communicate via social media. You got to pick up the phone. You got to knock on doors and have your mask on and stand 6 feet apart. You have to have small forums like what we're doing right now. And the thing is, we shouldn't leave things right here. We shouldn't have a powerful conversation and then go out and do nothing. We need to walk away with some to-dos and some asks and some tasks for our community. And we need to hold each other accountable as well. You know, as a resident, you can't ask something from your leader if you're not doing anything yourself. Like you need to also do something as well. You know, it's both sides. It takes all of us to make this thing happen. And it starts with communication. It starts with effective communication, and it starts with follow-up, because we can communicate all we want and say this, that, and the other, but if there's no follow-up or no next steps, then it sits where it is.
Thank you so much, Councilman. And going back over to Kevin, State Rep Kevin. Sorry, Kevin, but you're going to be like our crime bill person here. The one we're going to ask these questions to. I want to get back to Chris' question that he wanted to ask a little bit earlier. He's asking, is there anything that we can do to support you as you push back against this crime bill, Kevin?
So I think that one of the biggest things that we can do is call our elected officials, email our elected officials, even if they're not the people that directly represent us. So I'm not gonna say don't call me. Of course, call my office and let me know how you feel. But I'm gonna vote. So we've broken the bill down into several different sections now. So I'm going to vote against pretty much all of it now. I think that I'm going to vote for the witness protection portion of the bill. But I say all that to say, call all the folks in the House and the Senate that are what you call some of the power players, right? So that's the Speaker of the House, the Majority Floor Leader, the Rules Committee chairs. You want to call all those folks that are closer to the bill and make sure that they understand how you feel about the bill and why you understand or why you feel those ways about the bill. It's been a lot of pushback especially on the original bill on SB1. Thousands and thousands of emails have been sent and received. So I would just say stay active with your elected officials, and maybe even come up to Jeff City. I know that that's not for everyone right now, especially with the pandemic going on. And I don't recommend it for everyone, but especially if and when we get past the pandemic, come on up to Jeff City and let the legislators actually see your face.
If I can just piggyback off of what Kevin is saying,
absolutely, go ahead.
It's very important to communicate with the representatives and senators on what they're voting on and what they're proposing. It's something that all of us should be doing, not just local leaders. And it takes all of us to have our voices truly heard. And one tool that I try to share with everyone as an easy way to get involved is called Democracy.io. And it allows constituents to send messages to multiple representatives with one click. And I encourage everyone to use it. So it's Democracy.io.
Absolutely. And Mayor Graham as well, you know, I know some challenges come with being in elected leadership as of right now. What are some challenges that you're dealing with?
Well, I think that for me, every day is actually a different challenge, because my path is a little bit different. My story is a little bit different than everybody else that's on here. I didn't actually run for office. One morning, I woke up to a text message that said, "Congratulations, Mayor-elect. The votes have been counted and certified, and you're the new mayor of Greendale." And it was morning, and I'm not a morning person, so I was a little I was a tripling. And so apparently I was a write-in, and I knew very little about what being mayor entailed. And I was thinking, I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. And I thought it would be easy enough to back out and not take the job. But then I found out that if I didn't actually do the job, that I'd legally still be considered mayor, since Missouri statutes dictate that officials serve until a successor is elected or appointed. and that my name would still be in place as acting mayor. So my civic duty is a little bit different than everybody else's because they actually knew what they were getting into when they got into it. But civic duty has been instilled in me throughout my life. So I want to make the St. Louis community a better place. So I just went ahead and I took it on, and I'm just learning day to day what it means to be mayor. So whether that's being HR, or if that's being a maintenance person and getting the hornet's nest out the pavilion so that residents can host their wedding there, which happened to me last week, or if it means, you know, just constantly talking to people about being neighborly and how they can help their neighbors, and whatever we have going on in the community. But the pandemic has certainly been a challenge in itself, just because this is nothing that any of us have ever experienced before in our lifetime. So that's a challenge. Every day is a challenge. I don't wake up without knowing that I will have a challenge in front of me to start the day. So I just have to do the serenity prayer and say, help me to change what I can change, and those things that I can't, just please help me to have the patience and serenity to deal with it.
Absolutely. Well, like Stephanie just put in here too, thank you for stepping up for that challenge, Mayor Graham. A lot of people would have been like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I know you said you was very hesitant about it, so it's good that you definitely did. I believe Terry was trying to come out. I just want to ask Mayor Graham just one more question before she go. We see, big things happening at the ballot box. I mean, just all across the United States right now. We're seeing a lot of people, like AOC. I can't remember the representative name in Illinois, but I know she ran and won, was another black female. What does that say? I know you said, you was a write-in and the community said, hey, we want you. What does that say about the community right now and just the energy of the people that's voting that, they're out there saying, we want these people, to lead, and we're tired of the same old that's been in place?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that people are just tired of the status quo and they actually want to see change made. And my position on it is that I think that we need to be grooming candidates, people that actually will stand up for the issues that we believe in. It's a democracy, so everybody actually needs to get involved. And I don't necessarily believe that it's a Democratic or a Republican thing. I hate that. I hate that they even split us up like that, because sometimes people will run as a Republican, but they're not a true Republican, but they just want to be on the ticket at the top. So, they'll take their role as opposed to just staying true to their values. And I think that's really what the voting is about, is staying true to your values and selecting the people that believe in the same things that you believe in, and will actually help to better the community in the way that you see that it needs to be and have the same vision as you. So I think that's what people are saying when they're going to the ballot box and choosing the alternative. Sometimes, with the Democratic National Convention, people are watching it, but then they're also saying, like, this is just a production. What is this really? They're not saying anything different than they would have said in the past. Like, we really need to be more about action instead of just, continually talking. We need to walk the walk. So I think that's what people are saying when they're choosing the alternatives when they go to the ballot.
Absolutely. And of course, I mentioned AOC. You can't forget Cori Bush here locally as well, who just did something that I think just shocked everyone as well. I think you guys will be hearing from her a little bit later on in this program. I want to go over to you, Terry, Councilman Terry, because, the big thing right now is elections. Lillian got to it in the chat box before I can even get to that point of the conversation. Myself, as a county voter, I really appreciated this past primary, being able to vote anywhere I wanted to. I'm a registered voter out of Dalewood, but I was at work in Maryland Heights and just went down the street and got it done instead of having to go all the way over to Dalewood and stand in line to get it done. I think that was really important. Hopefully they make that happen in November. But Lillian asked in the chat box, how are community leaders, because of course we're dealing with the whole postal service that is like big news right now. And I know it's making everybody else head spin because I'm a reporter and I'm like, okay. The question Lillian asked was, how are community leaders working with the Election Commission to ensure people understand how to vote? Because, with certain votes, it has to be in there the day of at 7. And that's the biggest thing, is people are going to be mailing in and also doing absentee as well. So Terry, can you kind of explain how you guys are working with the election committee, definitely in St. Louis County, which are very transparent actually, when it comes to November?
So in terms of the Election Commission, I will commend the new leadership, because I don't know if you know, the director hasn't really been there for a very long time, but the short time they've been there, they've made a lot of changes in terms of getting the information out to the constituents, especially in St. Louis County. Because I don't know if you remember, before they used to just send a card, but now they send a card with a list of everything that's on there. They've updated the technology. That's why we're able to go to any polling place. I think really taking advantage of technology. I mean, come on now, we're in 2020. It's a lot of things that we should have been doing. And I think a lot of people that were in leadership purposely did those things to suppress people from voting. And from my standpoint, I can't speak for any other leader, but I'm in constant communication with Director Eric Fay. And so any information that is pertinent to elections and updates and things like that, Eric Fay is very active on social media. Of course, I am as well. And so I try my best to send out mailers to my constituents. I actually post things on social media. But in terms of directly working with them, I'm just communicating with the leadership of the Board of Elections and making sure all residents are informed of any changes. I make sure that I participate in any webinars that they have. They have a lot of webinars if you go to their website. And so I'm just really making sure that I'm equipped and educated so I can share that information with the constituents, because they all look to us for everything. And so I try to make sure I'm in as many spaces as possible and educating myself and getting to understanding myself, because a lot of false information is given out. And I try to make sure that I have the most current and replicable information possible, and I pass it along. I don't hold anything. I even call other elected officials and let them know, hey, this is what's going on. Make sure you tell everybody, things of that nature, and really informing the community as soon as I get the information.
How can that be done though? Because I like I said, I knew about, I work in the news, so I knew that you could go anywhere in St. Louis County. And when I posted that on Facebook, saying I voted, and luckily I could do it anywhere, a lot of people was like, I didn't even know you could do that. When I tweeted it out, like literally a person of like one of the school boards, she literally was like, I didn't even know you could do that. I just did it 5 minutes ago. Thank you for telling me. And that was just me just tweeting something out. How, and if you're already doing it, definitely share with other people so they can do it in their own community, because people want to know the difference between mail-in and absentee. How is that happening in Jennings where you are? How are you guys planning on making sure that your residents know about the difference? Because voter suppression is real, and people not knowing the difference can really lead to detrimental things within their own community and the world as a whole. So how are you guys in Jennings particularly making sure that your residents know the difference between the two?
So before I go there, no one has really found the silver bullet on how to communicate. We literally try everything. We have marquees, we send out mailers, everything is at the city hall. We try to work with the businesses and make sure they're in the stores, posters, social media, email. If you find a new way of communicating, please let me know. But we have literally tried to do everything. We have newsletters. It's announced at our meetings, and those personal conversations and connections always work as well. You know what I mean? So we're picking up the phone, calling people. Our council people are calling people in their ward. We still have small neighborhood watch meetings via Zoom during our council meetings. So anywhere possible that we could put it out there, we have been on the ground doing that. We've been working with organizations such as the Urban League and other small nonprofit organizations to get the word out about that as well. Like I said, if you find the magic silver bullet on getting the word to everybody, please let me know, because even after all of that, it still doesn't get to some people, you know what I mean? And you have to really just continue to do it and put it out there. We utilize the school district. The school district does lots of phone blasts. And so, Dr. R. McCoy is very, very good at reminding people when there is an election. He does that to all of the parents in the district. And so just utilizing all avenues, and we've really been doing that, and any other communication tool that we find new, we definitely jump on it and use it and spread the word.
I want to be very clear, just like what was her name? Nancy put in there. The voting everywhere was just for the primary in St. Louis County. Not sure they're going to do it for the general election in November. Definitely.
They haven't
said it yet. Plug, but just stay tuned to Fox 2 News. We'll definitely keep you updated on if that ever happens. Want to bring you back also in, Kevin, as well, because as you know, voting is very serious. You know, the person before you was in office for a long time, and then you came in, Kevin, and took over that reign. How are you also making sure that, you know, constituents, because you cover, you know, you're the state rep, so you cover a bigger area, you know, what's your thoughts on making sure that, you know, voter suppression does not happen to the best of your abilities and your district, and making sure that folks know the difference between the two?
Well, first I want to say you threw out the disclaimer that we went to the same school. But I don't know that you threw out the disclaimer that you and Terry are frat brothers. So, but yeah, so I'm on the elections committee, so I get a little bit of influence in trying to debate how our laws are established, and kind of like the crime bill, the bill that affected absentee versus mail-in voting this year. It started off as a very bad bill. It started off as a bill with voter ID, and it started off as a bill that was so narrow that it would only be for 2020, and you had to it had to be a very tight diagnosis. So now it's still a little bit confusing on what an absentee is and what option you choose versus what a mail-in ballot is, and what those restrictions are. However, I've been trying to honestly, one of my primary methods is things like this. So in our time where we aren't quite congregating in person as much, I try to come to as many virtual forums as I can. So I've talked to diverse groups. So I've tried to partner with different folks all around the community, whether it be the Young Democrats or whether it be the House Democrats having our own virtual town halls. Of course, the 24/1. So it's a bunch of different ways to try to get it out. I also do more traditional methods like mailers and things like that. But to take it back a little bit to an earlier question, so Mayor Graham was I think that's a pretty unusual experience, especially for a younger person. I like you said, I didn't quite come in like Mayor Graham. I had to scrap and fight a little bit in order to show people that I was the best person for this position. So I'm the youngest Black man to ever be in the House of Representatives, and sometimes older folks, whether they look like me or not, didn't always think that I was the best person to be in that position. So I think that it's really about formulating policies and making sure that you as the First Lady would say, the forever First Lady would say, going low or going high when other folks go low. So I think that's important. But when it comes to voting, I just especially try to make folks know why it's important to vote, rather than just telling folks to go off and vote. I think that's especially important to give folks something to vote for.
Absolutely. And we're going to stay on the voting. I have a question for Mayor Graham, but I do want to ask you, Kevin, you know, I mean, as we know, we both put the college together. I know you're pretty young as well. How was it, you know, I think in my own personal opinion, I think a lot of the times, you know, the thoughts of younger, you know, elected officials just get wrote off as being just progressive and not just being something where it's like, you know, I just think this because it's just the way to go. You know what I mean? How do you kind of navigate and kind of deal with that? And, you know, not having your thoughts or your ideas that maybe young people see as just basic human decency as being wrote off as being something of political and being politics and being called progressive and it being put in a box. How do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, I think that you almost answered your own question with that one at the end when you said being put in a box. So you know, it's hard not to let people put labels on you. I get the progressive label from different folks, whether it be honestly because I'm Black or whether it be because I'm a young person. But it turns out that not all Black folks are super progressive, right? It's actually a fair number of more moderate or conservative Black folks, even in St. Louis County. So I really just try to weigh my policies out on how they will actually affect my community in the long run and in the short run. So most of my policies are based on what my lived experience and even some of the things that I studied. So I took a couple public policy classes, even though that wasn't my major. And my major was communication. So being able to talk to folks, whether they be your constituent or whether they be folks on the other side of an issue, to understand where folks are coming from and how best to move forward from there. So honestly, I don't really have a good answer for you on how not to allow folks to put you in that box, but I try to propose a wide variety of policies that would positively affect my community. So I think that's one way to not necessarily put you, or not necessarily let people put you in a box.
Thank you. And I want to actually ask this question to both Mayor Graham and also Councilman Wilson as well. Vita asked an amazing question in the chat box. And he asked, can we host events helping to get people connected with the opportunity to vote early? And thus we could have as much voting as possible finished by November, as opposed to waiting to that day. Mayor Graham, have you ever thought of that approach to it? And potentially now, hearing that thought, is there something maybe you think about doing sometime within the next 2 months or so?
I think that's an excellent idea. And for me, I've actually been sending information to my family and friends. I'm not a big social media person. I will send you an email in a heartbeat, though, and just share the information with them about early voting. And even for my mom and my cousins that are a little bit older, I encourage them to vote early just so they wouldn't have to be in lines, with the pandemic going on and just having to be around people and risking that. And I think that, Beyond Housing has been very instrumental in some of the things in educating people around the community about the early voting and the mail-in voting and the things that are necessary to get it done. They've had pop-up events and they've had notaries on site so that all the proper procedures are in place. I agree with Ms. Vetta on that position that people should be voting early and just taking advantage of every possible thing that they can to be able to have their voices be heard, because voter suppression is real. And if people didn't really care about you voting, they wouldn't be working so hard to try to take that away from us. And I think it's important that some younger people, I have a little through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And she is like totally aloof about the entire process. And I try to explain to her, what it really means to vote. Don't just go vote based on, what somebody said. You actually have to educate yourself on the issues. You have to educate yourself on the candidates. Most people skip over the judge part totally when they are going to the ballot. And that's like one of the most important parts of it. Like, these judges are, making the call on who goes to prison and what the quality of these families' life will be when they lose the loved one, So I think that it's very important for people to educate themselves, not just on going to vote, but, what is it that you're voting for? And I hate stacked legislation. If I could abolish that, I would, because it's too hard for people to understand it. It's already that the way that the stuff is written is too complex. It's like it all starts out with there's going to be, ordinance or shall we or whatever the medieval language that they're using on these things is. It's like, just write it in plain English so that people can understand what you're really saying and what they're really voting on. And then don't stack it on top of each other so that it's like, okay, I agree with this one thing, but then I don't agree with the other thing. So how do I vote? Do I not vote at all on this thing? So, I think it's a matter of not just saying go vote, and not only just telling people why they should vote, but letting them know they have to understand what they're voting for.
Absolutely, Mayor Graham. I mean, even sometimes I go to the ballot box, I'm like, now what? I read on this, but I'm reading this now. I'm like, I don't even know if I'm reading it right. Well, what is it? It's just a whole lot. So making sure that your constituents have that sample ballot and going to them and say, hey, well, let me explain what this is. I'm not even trying to tell you which way to vote, but I just want you to know this means this and that means that, because like you said, you can get there and start reading it and it's like, I don't even know what I just voted for, but you know, I voted, and we just don't want to vote just for the sticker. We want to make sure that people know exactly what they're voting for, and I think that's like a two-part thing. I want to go over to Councilman Wilson as well. I want to ask you the same question because I thought that was a very, very great point coming up with about, hey, why not have sort of, I guess, voting parties now over the next 2 months? It's going to do mail-in voting. How about we all come together? I know in college, what we used to do, you know, to get people registered to vote, hey, meet us here, let's get you registered. And why not just say, hey, let's get you registered. And for folks who are already registered, let's get you voting, and we can do this all together. What's your thoughts on that, Councilman Wilson?
Well, I'm right in alignment with the mayor. I'm actually lucky to be in the position I'm in now because I work for this wonderful organization, Beyond Housing. So I'm able to actually be a part of participating and planning a lot of the things that happen in terms of the pop-up events and events going on here at the Family Support Center here in Paysdale. But I think it's very important to actually encourage other people to actually engage folks, like you just said, in pop-up parties and Zoom calls and things of that nature, because voter education down the ballot is very, very important. I mean, it's a lot of people going to the ballot that don't know what they're voting on, and sometimes they might skip over an important issue and not vote on it, and it ends up passing or failing if it needs to pass or fail for the community because we're not educated on the issue. And I think we need to do more of those type of events and incorporate them in your social events. You know, you can have all social and throw 10% education in there every time. You know, I know a lot of people are doing a lot of happy hours and social events and things like that. You can take time out during the intermission or right in the beginning or have an incentive at an event. If you listen to this, then this will happen. I think we need to get more creative in terms of educating people and take advantage of every opportunity when educating everyone about what's on the ballot and when to vote and where to vote and how to vote and all of that stuff. So I'm in agreement with the mayor.
I think that's a good person to ask that question to as well, Derrion, because to throw this out there, represent or councilman or what should I call you?
A little bit everything.
Should I call you Mr. Committee Man? Because that's what I'm going to talk about here now. That's one of the hidden elected positions, I call it, that a lot of people don't pay attention to. And your committee people are responsible for telling you what's on the ballot and informing you a little bit more. So I saw committee man she got in the chat as well for the university township. So just knowing what township you're in and knowing who your elected officials are and knowing what their responsibilities are, I should be able to go to Terry and say, hey, I live in Norwood Township. What's on the ballot and tell me who you think is best for the township. And he should be able to give me that.
And I appreciate you bringing that point up because for that very reason, that's what motivated me to run for committee man. You know, I was sitting up, my wife was like, all right, now how many things are you gonna do? But I felt as if that position has been underutilized for a long time in a lot of townships. And so that is what motivated me to run, because I'm like, I'm already kind of doing that already. So why not shift into an official role and get some resources from the party to educate the community? Because the sole purpose of the committee person is to organize the area in terms of elections and candidate recruitment and training and voter turnout and voter registration. So I'm like, I was already kind of doing it in an unofficial capacity, and it was being underutilized in my area, and I wanted to strengthen it. So that was the motivation for me even running for that position. I thank you for pointing that out to Representative Windham.
Absolutely. And we have about 10 minutes left on this panel. I think it's been amazing. I've learned definitely some new things here. You all are three amazing people within the community, amazing people that I love working with personally as well. I do want to give you guys time to have just some closing remarks, though, just those last words. You know, in plain sight, I would just ask, where do we go from here? There's a lot of things going on right now. Even I get overwhelmed with it, even while I'm, you know, maybe anchoring the news one day, and I'm like, okay, we got this going on. We got the mail-in voting. We got the crime bill going on in Jefferson City. We got the protests going on. We got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Streets closing in downtown St. Louis. Like, what's going on around here? It's a lot happening. So my question to each of you, of course, you can give your own closing statement, but I think the next thing we need to know is, where do we go from here? And I want to start with State Rep Windham in your closing remarks, and also answering that question and also speaking your piece as well.
Yeah, thanks, Derrion. And I'd be remiss, even though it's at the end, to not welcome everybody to the virtual 85th district, right? So thanks everybody for coming to the call, and thanks 24/1 for having me. I think that before I go to where we go from here, and this kind of might even hit on that, is to encourage folks to invest in our young folks. And I try to get that message out as much as I can, because like I said earlier, it wasn't easy for me coming into government or politics, and I think that it should have been a little bit more welcoming, whether it was on the official side or on the non-official side. So whether it's young folks that may be doing something that we think is going to empower us or help us, or is young folk doing something that we think is going to empower the community, we should be all in on that. But I think that where do we go from here is kind of where we've been, and trying to strengthen on that. So I think it's important to be involved and stay engaged, and know who our elected officials are, and make sure that we're putting the right elected officials in position, and make sure that they're making the correct decisions, because just because you vote for somebody don't mean you're gonna always agree with them. So making sure that you hold them accountable. So where we go from here is paying attention. In St. Louis, we have a very fragmented government and even way of life. So we got to pay attention. Even though we live in the county, we got to pay attention to what's going on in St. Louis City and their government. We got to pay attention to what's going on in St. Louis County government. We got to pay attention to what's going on in St. Charles government, all the municipalities in St. Louis County government. I don't want to take too much time here, but I just think that being involved and engaged, no matter what that means to you, if you're a young person, whether that means protesting. When I was in college, I did a little bit of protesting, but I also did a lot of research and writing about the history of St. Louis, which I think also partly led me to want to run for office. So whatever your lane is, go as fast as you can in that lane. And no matter whether you have the support or not, just keep going. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, State Rep Windham. I want to bring in Mayor Graham. Once again, Mayor Graham, it's been such a pleasure to meet you virtually, hearing your story about getting that morning text. And we all love a good morning text, a good morning text. I'm not sure people want to hear good morning, Mayor. Congratulations, that's a little bit much. So thank you so much once again for stepping up to that plate. But I want to leave that question with you as well. Where do we go from here? And also, like I said, you can speak your piece to the people as well.
I really feel like a lot of times in these forums, we're preaching to the choir. We're kind of talking to the same people that already know what we're supposed to be doing. So I think that I need to get with Chris to get a grant to Mr. Farrakhan Shegog, since he's in the street. He's very well connected to the youth. And just,
there we go.
Connected to the youth a little bit more, so that we can have a bigger pipeline of people ready to go and go ahead and do what we need them to do. But overall, I think that it's just really about participating in anything that will help to make our community better, make it a better place to live. It takes a village. So it can be as simple as voting, as simple as volunteering on a board with a nonprofit, staying informed of the legislation. And I got another idea about that called legislative push, Chris, I'll give it to you later. Engaging with elected officials, and dare I say it, actually not trying to get out of jury duty, people. Please serve on your juries because it makes a world of difference. So, we got to stay focused, be ready for November, go vote in November, and just continue to, you know, just be a good neighbor, respect each other and love each other, and always just keep focusing on the bigger picture of making the community better.
Yes, yes, yes. All of that, Mayor Graham, all of that. A quick shout out to Nancy in the chat. She's been giving some great information, some great links and things of that nature. Thank you so much, Nancy, for being our star within the chat with keeping everything flowing. I'm pretty much loving that. I'm definitely keeping an eye on that as well. I want to end it off with Councilman Wilson or Committee Man Wilson or I don't even know. I mean, you can just keep going for days and days and days. You don't know what's coming next, but let's end it off with Mr. Wilson, and you can put whatever you want before Wilson.
Well, before I end, I'd like to thank the organizers of this for even giving me an opportunity and a voice to speak, and also my colleagues on the panel. I really enjoyed it. But where do we go from here? One, I would say we need to invest in what's already working so we can scale it up. Shout out to neighborhood programs that equip the community, such as the Neighborhood Leadership Fellows program through UMSL Extension. I think we need more investment in that. We need to train our leaders. We need to equip our leaders. We need to invest in our leaders. And we need to invest in the things that are working. Because if they're working on a smaller scale, we can change things on a larger scale. Also, we need to hold each other accountable. We don't need to continue to tell people what they want to hear. We need to make sure that we hold folks accountable. And then lastly, we need to work towards unity. We don't have to like each other to get things done in our community. I don't have to like the color shirt that you wear to a meeting to get something done in the community. But I believe that we need to unify because there's power in unity. And I think we are lacking that power because we are in separate silos. And I think if we start bringing things together, because everybody has their lane, everybody is good at, that's one thing about Beyond Housing. We're good at bringing people together that are good at doing things in their spaces. And I think we need to focus more on that as a community. And I'm very optimistic on everything that's going to happen further on down the line. I'm excited. And I say, let's just keep going. Let's encourage each other and let's stay positive because we will make it through.
I mean, if you can't put a period on that, or as the young folks say, period to all of that. Thank you so much, Councilman Wilson. Well, Committee Man Wilson, I ain't gonna go into all that because I'll continue going on for days. And I also personally want to thank Beyond Housing, MU Extension 24/1 for inviting me here. Shameless plug again, you can check me out on Fox News at 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And also, you can also reach out to me on Facebook as well. Thank you guys so much for having me here. I've learned so much personally. If I could be any type of help for you, you know, the media plays a huge part in this, of course, you know, in getting out that word. Terry will let you guys know, you know, I'm just a phone call away. You tell me what's going on and I'm going to figure it out. Even if I'm not there, I'm going to try to get a camera there, you know, because I know how much of important it is to make sure that, you know, the word is out to the people, especially as to deal with voting and things of that nature. I know how much it can really affect all of us. And yeah, I'm a homegrown guy here in St. Louis, so I care about my community as well. So again, thank you so much to Beyond Housing 24/1 and the MU Extension for inviting us. This has been a phenomenal panel, in my personal opinion, also the opinion of many folks in the chat room as well. I'm gonna send it back over to Raina. Raina, thank you so much for having me, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the program.